Hi, this is a question from Colin, who recently completed my course on selling with stories. And he asks, you talk a lot about using stories as a way to help companies connect with their customers and prospects. But how about us freelancers? Can we use stories too to sell our own services? Well, absolutely you can. And if I didn't make that clear in the course, that's my bad. Now I'm going to go back and check and see if I can reinforce that a bit. So yes, stories can be very powerful selling yourself as a freelancer. So I'm going to use myself as an illustration here. If you go to my website, nickosborne.com, you will find a tab on the top called My Story. And if you open it up, you will see that the first few paragraphs are devoted to my origin story as a freelancer. And I'm going to quickly go through that just to illustrate a point or two here. So back in 1979, I was 22 years old. I was in search of my first proper job. I'd had kind of manual labor jobs, but I wanted a real job with an annual salary. So I went up to London. I'm a country boy. I went up to London, stayed in a house with lots of other people, slept on the floor. One of the guys in the house said he worked in an ad agency. I had no idea what that was. And I said, is it fun? He said, yes. So I took out the yellow pages and the old manual typewriter and I wrote letters to 20 different ad agencies in London. I got 3 interviews, 1 job offer, and I took it. So there's a condensed version of how I arrived at this agency. And when I got there, I was like a trainee. They didn't know what to do with me. I had no qualifications, hadn't been to university. I had no background in marketing or advertising. Why they took me on at all, I really don't know, but they did. So they thought, hey, we'll move Nick from department to department and see where he fits. So I did time in the media buying department, in the production department, and the last one on my list was the creative department. But before that, I had to work with the account executives, the account supervisors, account directors. So the account services group, that's the people in an ad agency who are the kind of go-between between the creative group on the one hand and the client on the other. So they go to the client, they get the brief, hey, we want to produce these print ads, this TV commercial, radio spots, whatever. They get the brief, they bring the brief back to the creative team sit down and they create that ad or commercial or radio spot or whatever. And then what they do is they then present it back to the account group. So this guy in the account group, he says to me, so then the creative team, they will present their creative work to me or to you if you kind of carry on working here. And then if we don't like it, we'll reject it and send it back. And at that point, and I hadn't even been in the creative department yet, but at that point I had this kind of immediate, deeply emotional, visceral, strong, angry reaction like inside. It was like, who do you think you are rejecting the work of the creative teams? And it was just this amazing moment because I'd never even worked in a creative department, but I had this incredibly defensive reaction. Like, who are you to question their creative work? And I guess at that moment, then I knew that's where I belonged. So I kind of served out the rest of my time with in the account department, account services department. Then I moved into the creative department, and I've been a copywriter for the last 35 years. That was the choice I made back then. So that's the story that I tell on my website. And yeah, it's a story. It's kind of an origin story. It's the origin story of how I came to be a copywriter. But it's kind of more than that, because it's also that kind of, I don't know, that blazing light by the roadside kind of story. There's that emotional punch towards the end of where I suddenly realized deep inside, this is what I want to do. So what's the point of telling a story like that if a prospective client were reading my website? Well, hopefully, if a prospective client read that page, they think, wow, this guy is deeply immersed in this. This is not just kind of something he's doing because he wants to make a living or because, I don't know, whatever. This guy deeply cares about this craft. This is emotional to him. This is a kind of flash of light moment for Nick. So it shows that I'm, that I'm deeply invested in the whole craft of copywriting. So a story, your story, has to serve some kind of purpose. Right, so to Colin and anyone else coming up with your story for your website, something to share with your clients, Well, you got to fish around and find it. Don't make it up. It's got to be real. It's got to be a true story. Now, this story, I only started sharing this relatively recently. It is true, but it sat in the back of my mind for actually decades before I thought to share it, to articulate it with others. Or rather to articulate it and share it with others. Got that the wrong way around. So sometimes it takes time to fish around in your memory and maybe sit down with family members, with friends, with colleagues, former colleagues, and say, hey, how did I get to here? What happened? What was the journey? And see if you can find in there some kind of story. So there's got to be some kind of arc. You know, my arc was looking for some kind of work, moving into this strange place. I was a stranger in a strange land, and then suddenly this epiphany, this bright light, and bam, here's what I want to do. That was my story, that kind of arc from beginning, middle to end. And that's what you're looking for. It may take you a while. You may need some others' input, some people to help you find that story. But if you can, it's a wonderful thing. Because it's something you can share with others. And as with any story, like through that whole course on selling with stories, I talk about how deeply stories connect with people, how stories connect with people emotionally, how stories are memorable. So instead of just reciting facts on your about page on your website, you can turn your about page into a my story page like I have, and share a story that will be remembered more often and for longer, hopefully, and will resonate and will make people care about you and what you do and what you can offer. So thank you for the question, Colin. And yes, absolutely, if you're any kind of freelancer, put in the time, and it may take a while, but put in the time. See if you can find your story and then find the right way to articulate it and to share it. Thank you.